As I said at the top of the show, today's focus is on North Carolina's private school voucher program and two reports that were just released. Up first is a report from researchers at NC State University, and joining us are two of the researchers. We have Dr. Anna Egalite from NC State University, and we have Dr. Trip Stallings. Dr. Stallings is the Director of Policy Research at the Friday Institute, also at NC State University. I should point out there was a third researcher, Stephen Porter, who also worked on it. He's not here with us, so he misses out on getting one of these cool Education Matters mugs. So, all right, look, I'm going to start with you, Trip. What did you? This is a study you wanted to do. I mean, this is actually in a series of reports around the Opportunity Scholarship Program. I think it's safe to say this one's gotten the most attention. What did you hope to accomplish with this particular study?
You know, we have, for a lot of our work, one goal is always to, you mentioned at the start of the show, a lot of the different policies that are moving through the legislature right now. We like to follow those every year and see which ones we think are of most value for us to explore so we can provide more information for policymakers, for citizens. And Opportunity Scholarship was one of those. So one of our purposes was to provide more and better information about the program and its impacts. A second piece, though, which is a little bit different from a lot of the other studies we do, I'm not sure how much your viewers are aware that this legislation that created the Opportunity Scholarship also required a serious and significant evaluation. So part of our work was also to demonstrate how much could be done and how much could not be done to meet the requirements as stated in the legislation.
Now, Dr. Egalite, I mean, Trip Stallings just mentioned that it required a significant evaluation, but I think a lot of folks, you know, and frankly, including the organization that I lead, has said there hasn't been a lot. And there, in fact, you've pointed out in your own study, there were some challenges. Do we know enough yet?
So thanks, Trip, for setting up the reason for why we did the study. It's a $28 million program. There's over 7,000 students involved right now. And like Trip mentioned, the legislation that created it called for an evaluation of learning gains and losses of students that receive the scholarships compared to similar public school students. So we were eager to evaluate the program as part of a broader evaluation effort. Our previous reports have looked at things like the hidden costs that parents are facing, private school principals' reasons for being a part of the program. We set out to evaluate the learning gains and losses as a pilot evaluation. We don't intend for this to be the final word on the program by any means. We encountered some significant barriers along the way. We were very pleased to be able to document those barriers. Before releasing this report, we were part of a state task force that described some of those barriers, but it was really only by going through the process of conducting the study ourselves that we were able to fully comprehend just how significant those were.
Well, let's dig into a little bit of the barriers, because look, there's been a lot of attention on this. I mean, editorials. I think there's one in the Raleigh News and Observer today about some of the what they see as the shortcomings of the study. One of the barriers that you point out in your own report is the inability to get access to the schools that are participating in this, and because of that. And we can, I've got some numbers we'll pull up on the screen, but half of you had 250 students at the end that from the private schools, right? I think you had more than that, but I think you ended up studying about 250. Half of the schools that were in your study were Catholic schools, but they only make up 10% of schools in the Opportunity Scholarship Program. And so I think some of the criticism has been, how is this representative of Opportunity Scholarships when Catholic schools are they've been around for a long time, and they kind of have a sort of a different history.
That's right. So it is not representative in the sense that we would like in order to represent what happens across the state with the Opportunity Scholarship. So the significant barrier that we had to overcome that you're referencing is the fact that there's no compulsion for any of these schools at this point to participate. And we should be clear, too, that that means there's no compulsion for private schools or for public schools. And in order to do a study of this nature, we really need participation from both. So we had to rely quite a bit on creating relationships with a number of schools. In the end, I think it was close to 30 or 40 in the public and private sector, so that we could at least have some access to some students for some testing. As a result, though, we don't have the ability to say that we were able to capture a snapshot that represents the students across the program, and that is a significant limitation.
Right.
And Keith, there's two parts to that. The private schools, we were very grateful that they volunteered to be a part of the study. They had no incentive or mandate to do that. That was very much a public service for them to do that. Similarly, with the public schools, we coordinated with 4 public school districts to pull this off. And also at the student level, these were kids who were opting into additional testing for no gain for themselves. This was very much because we created a document that described the purpose of the study, and we circulated that among the private school associations, among private schools that we reached out to directly ourselves, and also allowed an advocacy group to share that document to let people know what it was we were trying to accomplish.
Right, and look, since you brought it up, you mentioned the advocacy group, and I'm going to bring this, I want to ask you about this. So our viewers may be familiar with who they are. Parents for Educational Freedom of North Carolina is the state's largest, most influential, well-funded. They basically led the charge to create this program in North Carolina. Daryl Allison was the longtime head. He just recently left. He's now running in a big position with Betsy DeVos's group, American Federation for Children. You had to rely on them to give you access to the schools, and so or to help get schools to participate. Look, I mean, don't they have a vested interest in essentially funneling schools to you that present it in the best light? I mean, as researchers, respect your credentials. Doesn't that sort of fundamentally affect the outcomes?
Well, it's like we said earlier, it's the same point from earlier. We know that we don't have a representative sample of schools, and so we try to make that very clear in the report and in coming and talking to you and other folks like you about this very thing. So we know that going in. We also are able, though, to introduce a number of statistical controls at the student level to help mitigate for some of that. Right. Is it enough to completely remove those problems? No, and that's why we make it very clear that even though the study helps move us forward in our understanding of the program and our understanding of the limitations for evaluation, we in no way want to make the implication that it is comprehensive in that way.
And now look, and others have, right? I mean, I was looking. I mean, I've got the whole list. Obviously, advocates on both sides, but I mean, the John Locke Foundation, they said this proves that children learn more and their families are happier. These students get a little bit of a stretch.
We use a matching model so that we can say with confidence that for the subsample of students that we were able to study, that their achievement was higher compared to similar students. And the similar students are matched in terms of prior test scores, prior discipline records, demographics, and regions of the state. But we have been very transparent that this report is not generalizable in that sense. Right. We cannot speak to the average experience of an Opportunity Scholarship user in the state, and we've been very clear about that.
All right, last word, just a few seconds. Trip, what do we need? What do we need? I mean, we can get this data if it was required, right, by law? So
let's put this in context too, Keith. It's what we need for this program, but it's what we need for any significant policy change like this that comes through legislation. We need the ability to have better transparency of the data necessary to meet our needs or anyone's needs as researchers or evaluators to truly understand the impact on a number of different levels. Right. We need for the rules that govern the program to match the requirements for the evaluation. And right now there's a significant conflict in the legislation itself between what's expected to be evaluated and what's evaluable.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Thank you both for joining us. I think we'll have the link to your full report on our website, so we encourage people, viewers, to want to learn more to look it up. So thanks so much for being here.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
When we come back, we're going to continue our discussion about private school vouchers where they look at the curriculum. But before we go to break, see if you can answer this question. In 2017-2018, North Carolina budgeted $54.8 million for private school vouchers. How much does the state plan to spend on this program on an annual basis by 2027?